Hello again and thanks for joining. So in this video we're going to try and finish up the repair to this Roco model. It's of an Austrian Krokodil electric locomotive. In part 1 I did a review of this model and we put it on the test track and found that it wasn't moving at all even though the motor was going. We realised that it was the drive shafts. We've got one just right in here which we replaced at the end of the first video. These wires are still hanging off. We've got to fix those. And we need to put a new drive shaft on the other end of the locomotive. So we're going to do that in this video. And you can see that we have this, well, it is a traction tower, but I'm using those as drive shafts on this. I think it would be quite difficult to get drive shafts for a model of this era, especially here in the UK. I don't know if Roco still supplies these parts, but it's near on impossible to get parts for these models here. So I'm just trying to repair this with these traction towers. So let's get started by taking off the circuit board again. Here you can see the culprit that's causing all the problems. It's this purple band here. It's just perished and therefore this drive shaft is just revolving and not moving the wheels below. So we're going to take that off and replace it. In order to do that I need to take off this screw here as well. So here's the problem we have. It's just split as well and it's stuck on there. So I'm just going to use some tweezers to get that off. Okay, now comes the tricky part. I've got to get this piece around this drive shaft here and then also up and inside here and around the flywheel. So let's give that a go. Okay, so this is proving a bit more difficult than I thought, so I'm going to try and take off this piece here and just pull the drive shaft out and see if we can get it that way. I've got the traction tyre here on the flywheel, you can just see it there. So I just need to stretch it down here and attach it onto the gear wheel and then assemble it all back together. Sounds easy, but I think this is going to be quite tricky. Let's get going and see how we get on. Okay, I think we've actually managed to get that together, which I'm quite surprised about. It was a real faff. I'm just going to move the motor to see whether the wheels move. Okay, so it does look as though we've got some movement here, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to put this back on top and then we'll give it a little bit of power and see if it will work. So that's excellent, it actually worked. I can't believe it, it's actually working. So we now need to put the circuit board back on the top and then solder it up. Okay, let's just give this some power and see if it will work. Okay, I was a bit worried there. I thought maybe I'd wired this up incorrectly, but it was just this part here where it does the overhead connection and it wasn't quite sitting where it should do. I've just moved it now to where it should be and given it some power and it works fine, which is great. Can't believe we've actually got this working. So we just need to get the body back onto it now and then we can give it a proper run. So disaster struck again because that traction tyre has just split. So we're back to step 1 with this. I'm going to have to order up some different traction tyres and possibly Hornby ones that are a bit thicker. Okay, so I'm back again and I've now got some more traction tyres. These ones are Hornby ones, you can see the part number there. And the current situation with the Krokodil is we've taken off the circuit board at the top again, taken these wires off again, taken this apart, and we're ready to put it back on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I've managed to actually get that on now. I still have to put the wires on, but I'm going to give it some power and just see whether it actually works. So it does look as though it's working, so I'm going to solder back on the wires now and then we'll give it a bit of a test run. Okay, let's give it a quick power test. Well, it's definitely working, but I think it's getting stuck on this dodgy track that I've got here. It is some old Hornby track and it just seems to get stuck when it's doing the transition from left to right there. But the good news is it is actually working. So I'm going to put the body back together and then we'll give this a proper run. Okay, it's all back together and we've got it on the test track. So I'm going to give it some power and keep all my fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. Well, thank God that worked. This has been such a pain to get this back together and working again, and it was such a relief to see it running down the track there. It seems to work pretty good now, which is great news. Let's see how much this weighs though. So this Krokodil weighs 482 grams. So it's certainly been an interesting time that we've had with this Krokodil, and I've had to make 2 videos in order to be able to get it repaired. I guess it's just indicative of the age of some of these models that things wear out and you have to replace them. But I do think this kind of rubber band drive method that this model has got is probably its Achilles heel. It would be so much better if it maybe had 2 motors and a bit more detail inside the cab, but maybe this is just indicative of the age of this model that they just made 1 motor in the middle there. It's quite good that you can use traction tyres to actually get this working and you don't have to rely on Roco's parts, because I actually think you wouldn't get any spare parts for this model anymore because it is now discontinued and it is quite old as well. But it's certainly been ambitious of Roco to model this particular locomotive with all its complexities of its drivetrain. And when you think that this is an old model and yet it still runs really good, okay, once it got a bit of a fix, and even the lights work as well, is testament perhaps to Roco's build quality at the time. It's certainly got a lot of character and it is one of those iconic locomotives. So adding one of these to your collection, you can't really go wrong, whether it's this one or a more modern version. Personally, I think this one will be quite a headache going forward and it will continue to be so, but it's certainly a very interesting model. So after having spent a bit of time with this locomotive and discovering its, let's say, character, I think I'm probably going to move this one on and sell it on eBay. However, I am a big fan of these Krokodil locomotives. I think they look really great, and so I'm going to seek out a more modern version of this, possibly one that's got 2 motors in it and more cab detail as well. Should you consider buying one of these old vintage Krokodil locomotives? I guess that depends whether you want an easy life or not. It certainly can keep you entertained having to get this one up and running every now and again, but once it does get going, it does look really cool. So I think this model would appeal to somebody who wants to tinker around with their locomotives and isn't content with just a plug and play type modern thing. Let me know what you thought about my analysis of this model and my repairs to it in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya.